I'm going to talk to you about entrepreneurial branding. And I want to start with a question of really what makes an entrepreneur. According to this guy, who is a mentor of mine and my former boss, you were all entrepreneurs. Because what Richard Branson says is that you don't actually set out to be an entrepreneur. Somebody doesn't set out to say, this is what I want to be. What the most successful entrepreneurs, in his opinion, are people who just set out to solve problems. They see gaps in the marketplace and they really can't help themselves. And I think the big difference between the successful entrepreneurs and probably the rest of us is that these are people who do something about it. So I'm going to talk about 5 strategies. Full disclosure, these are all strategies that you've heard before. But in my opinion, it's not the strategy that's important. It's the examples, it's the learning, and then it's acting on it. My first strategy is if you are working on something, you better be really personally passionate about it because it's really hard to be an entrepreneur and to get things to market. So pick things that you're going to want to work on 24/7, that are the things that wake you up in the middle of the night. So that's the first strategy. The second strategy is about taking a fresh look. So you have this problem identified. You're passionate about solving it. How are you going to solve it in a way that other people haven't? When I was talking to the students there, and I said, what would happen if a typical airline like Delta were to twist with Starbucks? And one of the students said, I bet, because it's such a social brand, that they would turn around the seats. So you wouldn't have to sit like this. You could actually maybe sit facing somebody. Just last week that KLM, I don't know if anybody read about this, but they just announced social seating, which is an opt-in program where you can upload your Facebook profile and your LinkedIn profile, and you could potentially find somebody to sit with for your flight that you would be interested in meeting. So not so far-fetched. You've got this gap identified. It's a personal issue to you. You have some fresh thinking. How are you actually going to bring this idea to life? And this is a concept I'm very keen on right now. It's called being useful. And I think what's happened in the business of branding and innovation is we've gotten too caught up in our own hype. We're too in love with our own creativity and our own intelligence, and we use words like innovation. Well, I would challenge you to stop using the I word and start using the you word and start to think about being useful. And I think there's some great brands right now that are being very useful. Bob mentioned this morning Zappos. I'm a huge Zappos fan. One of the things that Zappos does is if you're online with them and you can't find the shoes that they promised on their site, if they're out of stock or they don't have them in your size, they will actually go to other websites with you in the phone and find them for you. So that, to me, is sort of the epitome of being useful. I think one of the ways to be useful is to think about how to impact your consumers along the entire chain of the experience. Has anybody here flown Virgin Atlantic, upper class? Okay. So what you might have remembered is that at Virgin, the customer experience on Virgin Atlantic upper class, it's not about your flight. It's actually about getting picked up before your flight in a limousine, driven to the airport, checking in from your limousine, they just roll down the window, going to a dedicated security lane where you can get through Heathrow guaranteed in under 8 minutes, going to this clubhouse over here where you can get your hair cut, get a massage, relax. On the plane, you have a bar, so if you don't want to sit down for 6 hours, you want to talk to people, you want to stretch your legs, you can. So it's usefulness along the entire journey. And I think that's a huge opportunity for entrepreneurs, is not just to think about the moment of purchase, but before, during, and after. The fourth concept I want to talk about is living in beta. And I know we talk about this a lot, but I think it really is a reality now. I mean, if you're not doing it, then you're missing huge opportunities, because the reality of the marketplace that we live in right now. I mean, remember when we used to do our marketing plans like a year out? I mean, how many people do marketing plans more than a month out now, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen. And we've all heard the example of Google that gives their employees 20% of their time. I mean, that's a huge amount of time. If you're working a 5-day week, that's 1 day out of your 5 days on, they call it 20% time, which is just to work on projects that may or may not go anywhere. These are just to work on, again, to principle one, personal passion projects that, that you want to play with. And Google 20% time has given us things like AdSense, which I think is a $2 billion product for them. The last principle I'm going to talk about, and then we're all going to get to work together, is about failing smarter. And if you are going to be in any kind of business, but in particular, if you're going to be about usefulness and entrepreneurialism, you have to realize that you're going to fail. Only one out of every 10 products that's launched is still around 3 years later. Okay, those are just, it's not a value judgment, it's just the facts, So it's not like failure is a negative thing. Failure is just a market condition. I think it's what you do with failure that makes it so interesting. So if you can create that kind of culture in your own companies, whether they're big or small, where people fail on a pretty regular basis, but they fail smarter, they learn something from it, then I would say you're really on your way to strong entrepreneurial branding.